Hi all, let's have a look at game 7 of the World Chess Championship. Sergey played d4, so varying from e4. Statistically, if you use a site like chessgames.com to check out the stats of Sergey with white, he usually plays e4 throughout his career, like more than 10 times as much as d4. So a little bit of a surprise. d5 from Magnus, so classical, symmetrical as we might expect. c4, c6, the Slav defense, doesn't block in the bishop. Well, not yet anyway. So the queen's gambit declined has that, blocking of the bishop. So some people regard this as a kind of upgrade, minor upgrade. Knight c3, knight f6. Now after e3, we have a curious looking a6, but it is actually the second most popular move. Looks a bit strange to just keep moving pawns here, but sometimes even rook a7 is handy when b7's attacked. There's some logic to it. We have bishop d3, which is a little bit of a surprise again actually. Quite most often knight f3 or queen c2 are played here. So just to confirm that, yeah, knight f3 or queen c2. So bishop d3. Now b5 is very popular, but statistically white has a higher win percentage than this other move, d takes c4. So maybe we can say this is more solid, actually, a more solid approach to take on c4. Bishop takes c4, and then we see this hemming of the bishop, and it, some might consider this a bit daft because of the c8 bishop. There's all these pawns on light squares. The thing is, black is going to liberate this bishop on a good square, the b7 square potentially. After knight f3, the key idea now is c5. So immediately with c5, that's another square off the light squares, and so b5 and bishop b7. The bishop would be quite nice actually on this diagonal. So after castles, we do see b5, giving that b7 square for the bishop. Bishop e2, bishop b7. Yeah, black's position, I think we can use the concept of stability really. If you compare black's position to, say, an exciting modern Benoni or a King's Engine, those systems are kind of provocative fundamentally. Here it's a lot more stable for black, this kind of classical approach. In the King's Engine, you're giving white the center basically. In the Benoni, you're giving white, a backward d6 pawn. Here, there's no major positional defects. Both bishops are not hemmed in, so black's got reasonable piece play. Black can even threaten to isolate white's queen's pawn. So we quite often see in this position d takes c5, which avoids that possibility of having an isolated queen's pawn. And we have a symmetrical pawn structure if black had taken on c5, but we get a little bit of a surprise, knight c6. Big theoretical departure actually. Either bishop takes c5 or queen takes d1. These are the most played moves in this position. So yeah, so knight c6, it does mean b4 is stopped though. There's no time to hold on to the pawn. We see knight d2, and now we've really gone off the beaten track, but not in a mega exciting way, I would say, because the pawn structure is symmetrical on both sides, which means no one's going to get a trump card of a pawn majority leading to a passed pawn that easily, you'd think. Knight d e4, we have the first exchanges there. Bishop e7. Now white's bishop is a problem, like black's bishop was, and white is not keen to play a3 and b4 here. Black's ready to pounce potentially with, at some point, maybe bishop f6 if he kicks the knight. Anyway, white plays the more modest b3 to try and sort out this bishop. I think it's a little bit ambitious to try and mimic black. Let's just check this out for a moment. I suspect this might lead to trouble trying to mimic black's structure here. Yeah, just knight takes b4. In fact, it's impossible. Yeah, the knight's hanging. So yeah, the more modest move is important to play here. Just the key goal to sort out this bishop, to give it that diagonal, and the knight stops bishop f6 basically anyway. So it's a good design. It works well the knight on e4 with the bishop just quickly going to b2 without any hassle. Knight b4 threatening, bishop takes e4 now. That's protected, and sometimes you'll see that knight f6 is a resource now on the bishop on b7. Black actually castles here, not now knight f6 because bishop takes, we're on this rook, but we see bishop a3, and it's getting a little bit tense actually that, you know, knight f6 could really be on the cards now. And in fact, Magnus provokes it with his next move. He plays rook c8, kind of provoking knight f6, because on bishop f6 also this knight's hanging, as well as this bishop hanging, and as this rook. It looks a little bit, you need to kind of realize what will happen here on knight f6. Now maybe black could have played bishop d5. It seems, you know, technically more solid, and maybe even black could then play queen a5 after, you know, hitting this bishop on a3. This is another, you know, loose piece basically. Queen a5 is not entirely a bad idea after. So bishop d5 seems the solid choice here, but we see rook c8. It does provoke this knight f6 check, which kind of works quite well basically. Obviously black doesn't want to take here, you know, taking on b7, it's easy. So bishop takes b7, and the thing is, after bishop takes a1, we have bishop takes b4 hitting the rook and this bishop. Now in this position, another perhaps not the safest move is played. Bishop f6 was played, but it seems technically black can play this, believe it or not. And as an example, bishop f3 would just be a mistake. We just take here and this, and with the exchange up for black. Yeah. So the move here, queen f3. Now on queen d7, bishop takes, for example, here. This is equal, and there's actually, on bishop takes a6, that would be a kind of mistake for white, because we get this kind of interesting variation with rook b8 here, where white's temporarily got two bishops for a rook here, but this a6 bishop is trapped, so that ends up being an imbalanced position, which may be slightly more favorable to black. So yes, all this excitement behind the scenes of this game. So yeah, so bishop f6 might not have been the safest move. We have bishop takes f1. White basically gets to be a pawn up, but is it enough? Is it enough? We see b4 locking down this extra pawn white has. Now, as long as black does not play, black played g6, as long as he doesn't play bishop c3, can you see what white can play if black plays bishop c3 here, which is a strong move? If I give you 5 seconds. Okay, a4, because then can't take the bishop. And it's just a dangerous outside pass pawn, which with a8, which is good for the bishop, you know, to help the pawn potentially. So no, black doesn't want to do that in this sort of scenario. He just, Magnus plays g6, and as long as he's locking down the extra pawn, it's not really an exploitable advantage. Now both sides just kind of move their kings towards the center here, and yeah, we get this position. Now g5. I'm not entirely sure there was any major threat to black here. So g5 locks down things anyway, sufficiently. King e4, rook c8, and now a draw was agreed. White doesn't really have an exploitable extra pawn. It's kind of locked down here on the queen side. Okay, so this is one of the shorter games, so people didn't have to stay in Europe to the early hours of the morning, as it was only 33 moves. So bit of a rest day for the relative rest day compared to other mammoth games we've had in the match. So at 33 moves, and it has some interest points behind the scenes, as you may agree. So okay, so game on. It's now 7 draws. It's all to play for in the coming games. Comments, questions, likes appreciated. Thanks very much.